Something else that victims of narcissistic relationships struggle with is feeling like a shell of a person after the relationship. So they're out of the relationship and they might remember their passions, right? They might remember the little things that they used to do that made them, right? We all have these like little things that we love to do, these things we spend time doing that just are part of who we are. Well, now they can do those things, right? Because they're out of the relationship and they can't seem to get there. It's almost like they feel like they need an emotional defibrilator to kind of jumpstart their inner self because it's almost like it's been erased. Again, narcissistic relationships, unlike any other relationship, they teach and train you to revolve around them 24/7. And when you are revolving around someone else 24/7 without even realizing it, right? It's done so slowly. It's like the frog in the pot of water that starts out cold and starts boiling slowly, right? You don't realize that you're revolving around them in the beginning, but it just happens little by little. Every time you're doing something for yourself, they say something bad happens. So you just stop doing for you. You stop thinking about you. You stop taking care of you. And you are literally like this shell of a person for you. And you're living 24/7 for this other person. When you leave that relationship, you haven't been yourself for so long, it doesn't just spring back. And victims of narcissistic relationships can sometimes feel, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be me? Unlike any other relationship, malignant narcissistic relationships are layered with manipulation, from gaslighting to projection, the silent treatment, blame shifting, the double bind, on and on and on I can go about the manipulative games that narcissists play as a result of having been forced to play, right? Because even if you didn't want to play games, if you were in a relationship with a narcissist, and again, whether it's romantic, whether it's with a boss, whether it's with a friend, you were forced to play these games. A couple of things happen. As a result of all of that manipulation, you felt like you were losing control of your mind, right? You felt like you were going crazy. You couldn't think clearly because everything you thought was normal in reality was twisted and turned and spun around so much that you lost grounding with reality. And as a result of the chronic stress of a narcissistic relationship, your body responds by flooding you with hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And both of these affect the brain. And so there's an out of balance with your brain. And that brain fog that you experience with the narcissist doesn't just go away just because they're gone. As a result of narcissistic relationships, people develop coping skills. Those coping skills are what help you to survive, right? So for example, a coping skill in childhood, if your parent is the narcissist, let's say, every time the child is their unique self, their authentic self, they're punished. Well, a child will develop the coping skill of abandoning self to make sure that the narcissist doesn't punish them so that they don't feel that abandonment. And as a result, they start living life through that coping skill. Now, in adulthood, they, instead of being authentic, they're people pleasing. They're always thinking about what others need. They're very externally focused. That's a coping skill. Narcissistic abuse creates tons of coping skills. And those coping skills are not you. They're not your authentic self. That's not who you really are. That's who you had to become to survive what you were going through. The last thing that I want to mention for the sake of this video that victims of narcissistic relationships struggle with is that they have internalized the abuser. This is definitely true if your abuser, if the malignant narcissist in your life was a parent, children internalize that. But it's also true if it was a long-term romantic relationship as well. And so what I mean by internalized is that the voice of the toxic person is now in your head. And so they could be gone, and you are now doing to you what they did, and they're not even there. They're not even in your life. And it could cause you to still feel bad about yourself. It can hold you back from striving after your goals. It can keep you stuck in limiting beliefs, and it can keep you from doing the things you love, even if they're not there. That's how much power that is, the internalized abuser inside. Those things, those 5 things, are some of the common things that I see victims of narcissistic relationships struggling with, even if the abuser is gone. So let's talk about what's needed to break out of these 5 things. And I'm going to be honest, okay, when we stop looking at the narcissist and we stop looking at what they did and what is their role, and we start looking within, prepare to be uncomfortable. Prepare to not want to listen. Like, you'll feel parts of yourself resisting this, okay? And this is the crazy thing about healing from narcissistic abuse and cptsd, is the fact that the things we have to do to heal, sometimes our brain, because of the abuse, will view as bad or uncomfortable, and it will cause extreme resistance. Just know this, okay? Anytime you feel resistance on this road to recovery, you are expanding outside of the limiting beliefs that have been shoved onto you, okay? But it is scary. It does take courage, and it isn't always easy. So I just want to throw that out there and be honest, because I think sometimes people struggle with healing and working through it because they're expecting a different emotion to take place when they start learning how to work through it. They're expecting to feel good about it. And you will feel good about it, but you first have to work through some things to get there. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So that being said, one of the first things that is necessary to break out of these areas where victims of narcissistic relationships get stuck is being willing to look within, being willing to see what's going on inside of you, what's going on inside of me. And the brain doesn't always want to do that, okay? So again, our brain is wired to push us away from pain and towards pleasure. So in the School of Transformation, I recently used the illustration that, like, you think of if you're a parent and your child is going to get a shot, right? And we take the child's face and we kind of move it. You don't have to look. We don't want our child to look because we think that we're helping the child. Well, our nervous system does that with us. It's like, don't look at you, look at the narcissist. Don't look at you. That's going to hurt. You're going to see the wounds if you look at you, but if you stare at what they did, you'll feel anger, and that'll give you more strength. That's what our nervous system does, okay? So the first step is starting to look within. The next step is to really get your nervous system, or to recognize that your nervous system and you are 2 different things. You are not your nervous system, okay? However, if you've been through narcissistic abuse, your nervous system has taken over control of your life, okay? And if you've been through narcissistic abuse, I don't even have to explain that statement. You understand what I'm talking about. Your nervous system makes decisions without your conscious consent. Your nervous system causes you to act and react in ways that you don't want to. It's become the boss of your life, okay? So that's out of balance. That's not the way we're supposed to live life. So part of working through it is restoring that balance and allowing your conscious mind to be the one that is in charge and not your nervous system. The third thing that you have to work through, okay, is the beliefs, okay? Because trauma isn't just what happened to you. Trauma is what you were forced to believe about yourself. That's what causes the suffering, right? If a narcissist rejects me and says horrible things about me, and I believe that I'm a good person, and I look at that person and I look at their reactions or their treatment of me and I say, wow, that person's really messed up. Like, that hurts me that they see me that way, but that's who they are. That's not, oh, well. Then I underwent stress, but I wasn't traumatized. With narcissistic relationships, what happens is their behavior, without realizing it, we may have made it mean something about us. The narcissist says horrible things. That means I'm unlovable. That means I'm bad. That means I'm going to be abandoned. Those beliefs that the narcissist loved to just kind of poke at and hurt and re-traumatize you with, they have to be upgraded. You can't just leave the toxic person. If you still have the same beliefs that they instilled in you, you're still going to feel like you're suffering. Something else that's needed is getting back to you, okay? Reestablishing or a clear sense of identity and learning how to live in harmony with that. And ultimately, living life authentically, okay? Those are just some of the things that are necessary, and they're challenging to work through, but it's not impossible. And it's those very things that we work through in the School of Transformation on a month-to-month basis. We take different pieces of the puzzle so that little by little, you can get back to who you really are, and you can live life as who you really are instead of who the trauma turned you into. So if the videos are enough for you to work through those things on your own, then awesome. If you feel like you need more assistance, make sure you check out the Thriver School of Transformation.